Picture this. You tap through a few Instagram stories like it's nothing, and suddenly you're looking at what appears to be a grave site connected to one of the biggest names in hip-hop. Not a lyric, not a meme, a headstone. And then you hear a young rapper on video saying things that make people freeze and go, wait, did he really just say that? That's exactly why this story exploded so fast. Because it wasn't just another celebrity argument. It was a chain reaction, one move leading to another, until it reached a place most people think should never be touched. And the crazy part is, none of this started with a grave. It started with a battle that never happened. If you want to understand how King Harris ended up posting images connected to 50 Cent's late mother, you have to rewind to the moment T.I. publicly said he doesn't respect 50 Cent anymore. That's a big statement, because T.I. isn't some random person online. He's someone with a long career, a reputation, and a fan base that takes his words seriously. In a clip from an upcoming episode of $1 Million Worth of Game, shared by Gilly the Kid, T.I. explained what he says went down behind the scenes with the rumored Verzuz battle between him and 50. Now, quick context. Verzuz was the platform where music legends faced off. Catalog versus catalog, hit versus hit. It wasn't about who could fight. It was about who had the better songs, the better moments, the better run. Fans had been calling for T.I. versus 50 for years because on paper it makes perfect sense. Both came up heavy in the early 2000s. Both had street images in different ways. Both had massive hits. And both have loyal fans who swear their guy would win. Here's the first curiosity point that keeps people glued. When fans demand the Verzuz matchup for years, you never really know how close it gets behind the scenes. Was it just talk? Or were contracts really being discussed? Time made it sound like it wasn't just social media noise. According to him, it was discussed between them and it was discussed between them and it was supposed to happen. T.I. said the goal wasn't to embarrass anybody. He described it as celebrating each other's catalogs. He also said the idea didn't come out of nowhere, and he didn't just call 50 out randomly. He pointed out that they were moving around in Los Angeles, doing business, selling shows, and being in some of the same circles. In other words, in T.I.'s version of events, they had real conversations and a real understanding. And then T.I. revealed the part that made him feel played. He said there was an agreement about how it would be announced. T.I. would bring it up publicly first, and then 50 would respond and confirm, and then the whole thing would roll forward. That was the plan. But according to T.I., when he did bring it up publicly, 50 acted confused, like he had no idea what he was talking about. Not, I changed my mind. Not, I'm not doing that. Just the vibe of, wait, what? T.I. said that moment is where he lost respect. He flat out said he doesn't want to stand on stage with 50, and that he doesn't respect him. Now here's a detail people keep circling back to. If T.I. is telling the truth, then the confused reaction wasn't just a disagreement. It was public embarrassment. And in the rap world, public embarrassment can matter more than money, so the question becomes, why would 50 do that? Was it a misunderstanding? Was it a strategy? Or did he never plan to do it and just let T.I. walk into it first? But it doesn't stop at Verzuz. These two already had tension long before any battle talk. There's a history of snitching accusations floating around, which is one of the most toxic things you can throw at someone in hip-hop because it attacks their identity, their credibility, and their street image all at once. Years back, when T.I. had a case involving multiple weapons and ended up with a sentence that some people felt was surprisingly light, it sparked rumors. And 50, who has always been outspoken, hinted that T.I. might have cooperated. He even referenced the idea in his music. So when Verzuz talk heated up again during the platform's peak era and T.I. pushed publicly for a battle with 50, all that old tension came back to the surface. It wasn't just who has more hits. It was pride, history, and old suspicion. Once T.I.'s comments from that podcast clip began spreading online, people waited for 50's response. Because 50 Cent responding online is basically a genre by itself. But here's the twist. 50 didn't respond by accepting the battle, and he didn't respond by calmly explaining anything. He responded with what he's known for, trolling. He fired off jokes, memes, quick captions, and that dismissive energy he uses when he wants to make someone look emotional. And then came the name-calling. He told T.I. to keep his name out of his mouth and at one point called him King Rat in a comment section. That's not a small insult. That's a serious label. T.I. didn't take it lightly. He responded in a way that made people lean closer to their screens. He basically said, "You're playing on my name, but only one of us is a real rat in real life." He claimed he had paperwork, and he said his own transcript is online. He called 50's excuses useless. The exchange turned into a public standoff. And here's another curiosity moment. Whenever two famous rappers start talking about paperwork, fans immediately start asking, is this real? Is it bluffing? And if it's real, why hasn't it already leaked? Because in the internet age, secrets rarely stay secret. But sometimes the point isn't proof, it's pressure. The accusation alone can poison the conversation. At this stage, it was still contained. T.I. and 50 going back and forth. Fans picking sides. People joking, people arguing. No one else needed to be involved. Then 50 made the move that shifted everything. He brought Tiny Harris into it. To understand why that hit a nerve, you have to understand who Tiny is beyond being T.I.'s wife. She's an artist with her own career. She was part of the R&B group Xscape, a group with major hits and real cultural impact. She has awards, recognition, and decades in the industry. And importantly, she wasn't the one talking about Verzoos. She wasn't the one accusing anyone of anything. She wasn't in the comments calling names. But 50 posted her photo anyway with a warning message telling T.I. to keep his name out of his mouth. Multiple outlets and viewers described the photo as unflattering, like it was chosen to embarrass her. And the internet reacted fast. A lot of people said it was mean and unnecessary. Others said, keep beef between men. Even some fans who normally enjoy 50's humor didn't like the move. Now this is where the story starts to feel like a lesson in how online beef works. Because once you bring a person's family into it, the argument changes. It's no longer me versus you. It becomes you disrespected my home. And once someone feels their family is being mocked publicly, they often stop thinking strategically and start thinking emotionally. Another curiosity point people keep bringing up is this. 50 is known for going personal in beef. This isn't new. He has a long history of dragging side characters into fights because he knows it creates chaos. He knows it forces a reaction. He knows it turns a simple argument into a spectacle. Some people call it petty. Some people call it genius. Either way, it works because it gets attention. So with that tiny post, 50 got what he wanted. T.I. reacted. T.I. jumped into the comments and responded, ending it with a hashtag that pointed to his son. Like a little signal that the family saw it and didn't like it. But the viral moment didn't come from T.I. It came from King Harris. King is T.I. and Tiny's 21-year-old son, a rising rapper, and someone who doesn't have the same public image responsibilities as his parents. He came into the situation with a different energy, less controlled, more direct, more emotional. And when he saw his mother being mocked online, he didn't treat it like a celebrity chess match. He treated it like a personal attack. King went to his Instagram stories with a rant that was described as explicit and aggressive. And instead of aiming at 50's music, business, or career, King aimed at 50's mother, Sabrina Jackson, who died in 1983. This is where everything crossed into a darker place. King told 50 to post a picture of his own mother, to pay respects, and to stop playing with his mom. Then he took it further, making comments that shocked a lot of viewers, including telling 50 to dig up his deceased mother. People replayed that part over and over because it didn't sound real. It sounded like something someone says in a moment of rage and later regrets. But it was out there. And King didn't stop with words. He posted images that appeared to show a tombstone with captions like, "This where your mama at?" Then he posted what appeared to be a photo of a gravesite connected to Sabrina Jackson. Here's the curiosity question that made this go even more viral. How did King even find that? Because it's one thing to insult someone, it's another thing to locate a gravesite and post it publicly. That step made people feel like this wasn't just a rant. It was intentional. It made people wonder what the next step could be if this kept escalating. King also posted other content aimed at 50-year-old court footage, references to legal issues, and even images involving 50's family. It was like he was going through 50's history and putting it all on his stories for everyone to see. To King, it looked like the message was, "You want to go personal? I can go personal too." Then he doubled down on his main point, leave Tiny out of it. He compared his mother's public legacy, her awards, her career, her status, to what he was saying about 50's mother, like he was trying to flip the insult back onto 50. At this point, the internet fully split into sides. One side said King had every right to defend his mother because 50 made it public first. If you mock someone's mother publicly, they argued, you can't be shocked when the response is also public. The other side said that bringing up a dead woman and posting a gravesite is crossing a line no matter what. They argued that some things should remain off limits. And then there was a third group pointing out the irony. 50 is famous for breaking rules in beef, but when you break rules long enough, eventually you meet someone who has no rules either. To understand why King's posts hit so hard, you need to understand who Sabrina Jackson was and why her story carries weight. Because this isn't just 50's mom. This is part of the origin story that shaped 50 Cent into who he became. Curtis Jackson, known as 50 Cent, was born on July 6, 1975, to Sabrina Jackson, who was very young when she had him. He grew up in Queens, New York, in an environment filled with struggle. 50 has described his mother as tough and proud, someone who didn't want to rely on welfare or low-paying jobs to survive. According to accounts 50 has shared publicly, she did what she felt she had to do to provide. Sabrina became involved in street life, selling drugs in South Jamaica, Queens. In a world where women in that role were rare, she stood out. 50 has described seeing people around his mother who had money, cars, jewelry. The symbols of survival and power in that environment. For a kid watching all of that, it can shape what you think success looks like. Then, everything ended. Sabrina Jackson died in 1983, and it was widely described as a suspected homicide. Authorities believe she was drugged, left unconscious, and that her apartment was set on fire. Despite how disturbing the case sounds, there were no arrests, and the person responsible was never identified publicly. 50 has talked about how losing his mother at 8 years old changed the direction of his life. He has said that, when things went wrong later, he would think, if my mother was here, it wouldn't be like that. After her death, 50 moved in with his grandparents and lived in a crowded home with other relatives. He began boxing as a kid, then later got involved in street activity at a young age. His life eventually led to drug dealing, violence around him, and later the infamous moment where he survived being shot 9 times in 2000, an event that became part of hip-hop history. So when King posted what appeared to be Sabrina Jackson's gravesite, he wasn't just attacking a random person. He was touching the earliest wound in 50 Cent's story, the loss that 50 has publicly described as life-defining. And that's why people reacted so intensely. Because even fans who don't like 50 could still recognize that this wasn't a regular insult. It was a strike at something sacred and painful. Now here's where people waited for the response like it was a movie cliffhanger. Because 50 Cent is called the king of trolling for a reason. He's outlasted beef with major names. He's known for not reacting emotionally, for turning serious situations into jokes, and for making the other person look like they're losing control. So after King posted the rant, the grave images, and the extra content, everyone asked the same thing. How is 50 going to respond? And 50 did what 50 does. He posted a meme reaction, something like a frog face image, and wrote a dismissive caption like, "Lol." That was his move. Don't argue. Don't explain. Don't show pain. Just act amused. Because if you act amused, it makes the other person look unstable, and the audience starts judging them instead of you. But 50 didn't stop there. He also reposted or shared content that included King and Tiny with a message like, "God don't like ugly," basically framing King's response as wrong and disrespectful. King then fired back again by posting more about 50's past, including references to legal issues. So the back and forth continued. 50 stayed in troll mode. King stayed in attack mode. And fans kept refreshing, waiting for the next post like it was an episode release. Then T.I. stepped back into the picture again, but not in the way many expected. Instead of trading memes and comments, T.I. reportedly went to the studio. He leaned into what he does best, music. Reports said he was working on diss material that labeled 50 as a dispatcher, and a keyboard tough guy, and again hinted at paperwork claims. That's heavy because it goes after the image 50 built for decades, an image of being street, fearless, and authentic. So now the story had 3 fronts moving at the same time. 50 trolling online, T.I. threatening music-level retaliation, and King playing defense for his mother in the most extreme way. Here's a curiosity point that keeps the audience locked. When beef reaches family, does it ever return back to music? Or is it permanently personal now? Because the Versus battle is supposed to be about songs. But once people start posting family photos, graves, and old court moments, it stops being about hits and starts being about humiliation. And that brings us to the bigger question this whole situation raises. What are the rules anymore? There used to be an idea in hip-hop that some people were off-limits mothers, wives, kids. Not everybody followed those rules, but the rules existed. 50 Cent has never really operated by those boundaries. He's known for crossing lines because it shocks people and because it forces reactions. But the risk of having no boundaries is simple. You eventually meet someone who will cross lines back. That's what this looked like. 50 posted something aimed at Tiny. King responded by posting something aimed at Sabrina Jackson. 50 mocked a living woman. King mocked a dead one. And the internet got stuck debating which was worse, while the actual conflict kept growing. And here's the part that makes this feel irreversible. These are not the kind of posts you can truly take back. Even if stories disappear in 24 hours, screenshots don't. Even if someone deletes a post, it gets reposted elsewhere. Once an image like a headstone goes viral, it becomes part of the public story forever. So where does it go from here? Some fans still hope this ends in music, a real battle, a real performance, something that turns all this tension into art. But others think that door is closed because once family is involved, pride takes over. And with pride, nobody wants to look like they backed down. 50 Cent has been trolling people for over 2 decades. He's survived beef with artists who are older, louder, and more established. He knows how to wait people out. He knows how to let them burn themselves out while he posts jokes. That's his style. But King Harris is 21, emotional, and defending his mother. That's a different kind of opponent. He's not thinking about legacy the way a veteran might. He's thinking about respect in real time. And when someone that young feels their mother is being embarrassed publicly, they can go to extremes without caring about the long-term consequences. So the question now is simple, and it keeps people watching. Did 50 finally poke the wrong person, someone who won't stop? Or did King just give 50 exactly what he wants? Chaos, attention, and a reason to keep trolling. Either way, one image became the symbol of how far this went. The appearance of Sabrina Jackson's headstone on King Harris's stories. For 50, that's his mother, the person he lost at 8 years old. The unsolved tragedy that shaped his life. For King, it was the hardest possible response to a man who targeted his own mother online. And that's why the internet went quiet for a moment. Not because people suddenly became respectful, but because everybody understood something at the same time. When a beef reaches a grave, it's no longer just entertainment. It's personal history being used as a weapon. And once that happens, you don't just log off and pretend it never happened. Right now, T.I. has a studio route. 50 has his meme route. King has made it clear that if anyone plays with Tiny, he's willing to go to the darkest place to respond. And the fans are left watching a situation where nobody wants the last move to look like a loss. Because in this kind of public war, the scariest thing isn't what was said yesterday. It's what one of them might post next just to prove they're not backing down.